the days working. We had days that was freezing, cold. I was lucky a little bit because I was one of the smallest boys, the youngest and the smallest. So they were freezing. Sometimes they didn't know what to do. I'm touching the guard, the SS, the German. You know, there was a lot of mostly Germans, and a lot of them couldn't even speak too good German. They were from Holland. You know, ethnic Germans from Holland, from Belgium. They were in the SS, the regular SS, the military SS. We dug the ditches to put in the because they built it like a town. Not just that, it wasn't a town, this was for themselves, the officers. They were the ones who went out to catch young Jewish boys to do the work. And they gave us very little food, very poor. We dug ditches for the sewer lines, for the water lines, so they had different groups. I was in the group of digging the ditches, to put it in the sewers or water lines, because there was no running water. And they wouldn't build for themselves without running water, without running sewers. They took a very heavily wooded area, very heavily wooded. They cut out a road inside. The trees were very tall. The tree, even when they cut out those trees on the top, it was still coming, their branches touching each other that you couldn't see this. Then they cut out in both sides of this road areas where they built it for themselves, housing. They called it villas in Europe. Here they will call this log houses. So they had groups that they, from the tree trunks, they chopped out to make those logs. So I picked up right with a shovel and they shouldn't beat me. But I could see they still beating other people, and then they chased them. When I picked up the shovel, they showed me where I should dig to put in a pole. So I never kept on digging. And I could see what it was unbelievable that day. This was, they built it a camp for the Russian prisoners, because they had so many prisoners, they didn't have where to put in. So they made a camp. This was a camp for Russian prisoners.
Was this in Poland?
But no, I made the holes in another.
Where was this in Poland?
In Poland,
In
yeah.
Poland.
Right? Not even far from my hometown. Maybe about 50 miles, 50 kilometers from my hometown. Maybe not even this far. Puskov was the name called. It was a rural, you know, an area from farms and land, there were woods. It wasn't an area from housing. Then I was digging, and the guy came in and beat me faster, because they were rushing everybody. They chased everybody with the horses. When the poles were there, they should run with the barbed wires. They made one fence, like 20 feet further they made another fence. In between, another group had to hit in stakes and run the wires like this in between. In another group, they were working to make fast the towers. They should be able to climb up the SS for housing. No housing. I was so lucky that day. All of a sudden, while I was digging, one of the must have been a big shot, you know, one of the SS, maybe he was in charge or something. He came over on a horse, right to me. He stopped right next to me. And held that horse. I was so scared because I saw the horse almost ran over me. He jumps down from the horse, he handles me the horse. What shall I do with the horse? I asked him. He said, don't do nothing. You should, wherever the horse wants to go, you should follow the horse.
You walk the horse.
Hey,
Like walk his dog.
I'm not kidding. This is the day, this horse saved me this day.
Wow.
This was around 10 o'clock in the morning. We were there till 6 o'clock. The camp was finished. They were chasing everybody, beating everybody. That through the day, the whole camp was finished for the prisoners, but not housing, just the yard. They couldn't escape. And they were all Mongolians, because when they took us to work, I could see a whole train was staying there, and the Russian Mongolian prisoners were walking around this train there with the guards to watch them. So He gave me this house. And this was an area that was grown grass, you know, in between the woods from the house that I walked around our whole day, eating that grass. And I held this house, but no assessment touched me this day. And the reason, because he must have been a big child.
Right.
Because when he came with that house, it was cold that time, winter, spring, late spring. I can't remember when it was. It must have been 41 and 42, because they attacked the 1941 days.
Right.
It was spring, or it must have been already in 42. And the horse walked, and I walked after. The horse, when he arrived at the horse had a big blanket covered, completely with his harness, you know. And the blanket went down on both sides, almost to the ground. And he was sitting on this horse, on this blanket. The blanket had his SS stitched in, big. As you know, the SS like 44. They didn't make an SS like here. The SS was like this and like this. A different kind.
Lightning bolt.
The blanket had SS on one side, and it had also his rank in the blanket stitched out. So he must have been a big shot. He gave me this horse. Wherever he went, I don't know. I walked the whole day with that horse, and I could see what is going on around me. 6 o'clock in the evenings, the camp was finished. We had to line up to go back to the camp, you know, after the day's work. And the next day we went to our regular job, but this was a one-day job, a Wednesday. I shall never forget it was a Wednesday. Now I don't know which Wednesday. And I stayed with that horse, and everybody's lined up, 4 in a row, more than I ever had. And the rest of the SS walking around, the group of people to take them, you know, this is the regular SS, to take them back, to march them back to the camp. And I still stayed with that horse. And I say to myself, what is going to happen to me? Because they did not come over to me to go back to line up. I have an hour later, this guy came, he takes the horse from me, and he says, now you go back line up with the other people. And they were waiting till the whole rest of the things were lined up, more staying in line. It started to get dark a little bit. And that's where they took us back to the camp. And then a few days later, I happened to dig ditches in the area outside that camp. It must have been not far from the area where they built the housing, and they needed sewer lines to build. So I remember digging a ditch for sewage or for water, I can't remember, and I could see through the barbed wire those Russians, those Mongolians. By the way, I didn't even know how Mongolians supposed to look like, because this was the first time in my life that I saw different looking people. They were used only to Caucasian type of people where I came from. You know, Mongolian looks different than the regular people from my area.
From Eastern Russia, close to China, right?
They were, it was strictly Mongolians, it wasn't regular Russians.
So Russia must have...
They were together, no, Mongolia was under the Soviet Union.
I understand, but the Russian military must have basically taken a lot of Mongolian people to come help fight.
Sure.
Yeah, this was
They brought them all the way to the west.
They told us they brought in 4,000 Mongolians.
Yeah.
But when I was working outside this camp, I could see through the barbed wire that they staying on a top. The SS were on a top on the towers. You know, they had the towers, and they kept on shooting down, shooting in. And each time when they shooting somebody, I could see it while I was working outside. They're falling down, and another guy comes over and with a wheelbarrow and takes him away. And this was in the beginning yet, when they thought they're gonna win the war against the Soviet Union. And everything has to do with luck.
Yeah.
When same thing happened in the Soviet Union, that the Germans lost for the first time. I think it was by Stalingrad. I don't remember which way, but this was, so certainly Germans escaped. They were full of lies. So they had in our camp a place where they build it, where they use for enclosing us, because we had also full of flies. Because didn't have any different clothes, the same clothes we were captured, the same clothes we wore, till it fell over and they fell down, they gave you new clothes. They brought those Germans to it, they sliced them, and they used our place. This was unheard of, to use a place where Jews were going before, to use for German soldiers. German soldiers was something special, you know. Then later, we had a lot, the place was completely iced up. So they took us for enclosing, they call it enclosing. So it was winter also. Can't remember which year it was, maybe 42, the winter of 42 or 43, or no, it had to be 42 and the 43. After the entire, you know, how did they took us in? We had to take off all our clothes outside in the snow, and we had to hang them up on hangers. They rolled it into a special room where they used gas to kill the lice. And while they were killing the lice for a couple of hours, the group was there to wash themselves on the showers, cold showers, by the way. So then once you were finished washing the shower, you came out and was still outside, laying the snow and cold. You had to go and to find your clothes that you hang, because they rolled it out from a place where they killed the lice. So I found my clothes, I put it on, and everybody put it on, but we couldn't go into the barracks. The clothes had so much gas that whoever went into the barracks, and with the windows open, this was the first camp where I was, with the windows open, they died from the gas, because the clothes had so much gas. The gas couldn't go out, so I didn't even go into the barracks. I stood outside as long as I could till it was very dark, and they gave an order that everybody had to go inside. So then I went inside, but I wouldn't go to lay down on my fridge. You know, we had those wooden fridges with straw sacks. I stood by an open window, and they told us, hey, if you feel exercise by the open window and breathe from the outside. And I stood there hours, because in the barracks, in the things where we lived, people fell from the gas, from the clothes, but they gassed the clothes. So this was the first camp. Then later, it broke out. After the uprising was, while we had lice, there was no sickness. After they killed all the lice, a few weeks later, all of a sudden, some people got sick on typhus. Typhus broke out. Typhus is very, you catch one from the other. My brother was working at a different place, and I was working in a different place. But when we came home to the camp, we came together. All of a sudden, I come home, and I look for my brother. I cannot find him. Where is he? Because we were in the barrack, we were together. I found out that there was a group of people, they got sick, and they took him to they called it the Revier. Revier was one barrack that they called it a hospital. And I got in there, he was very sick already, on typhus. He couldn't eat, even the soup that he got there, he couldn't eat no more. Well, of course, I took his soup. He ate a little, and 2 days later, I got also the same sickness. We were, everything has to do with luck. This was the time already when the order came out from Germany to kill all the Jews in the towns. In other words, to clean out all the Jews from the whole of Poland. This was the time, but the order didn't come yet to the camp. In other words, the SS who were in this particular camp, didn't get the order yet, or they didn't know yet. But the order came out already, because when I was home for a little while, when they still had a Jewish hospital in Tarnova. This is the next big city to our town, 19 kilometers away. There was a Jewish hospital, a big hospital with doctors, with noises. So all of a sudden, they didn't have no more room in the place for the sick. Every day more and more people got typhus because it broke out unbelievably. They took out one transport one day, whoever came in before, to make room for the other sick people. And I didn't know that they took out my mother because I was in a different area. All of a sudden, the next night, a truck, this was from the Jewish hospital, they came to take out a certain amount of people, maybe 20 people. How much could go up on the back of the truck, you know? They came in to take another group of people. And they called out the names, but they didn't call my name. But I didn't wait till they should call the name. I ran down from the bed, I covered myself with a blanket, and I walked to the truck. You know, everything is meant to live. It comes to it. And then I went up on the truck was full, the truck went away. This was the only 2 trucks that they took away to the Jewish hospital. Because when I came into the Jewish hospital, I was there for about 10 days. My mother was still home with my father. She found out somehow, I don't know how, that her 2 boys are in the Jewish hospital. And this was already after the order came to kill the Jews. So whoever went from my town to the other town, city, and he wouldn't have a permission, a special paper, and if they encountered a roadblock, you know, from the horse wagon, they went with horse. We went horse, you know, the people who owned the horses had special papers.
Right.
They stopped the wagons and they took him down and shot him right away on the place. And my mother took a chance without any permission. She went to the safe city. Luckily, there was no horse things going. She figured if they will stop, she will say that she has 2 boys that they told her to take them home. She arrived and she took home me with my brother. He received already a paper from the hospital, but there was no roadblock coming home. And that's when I came back home. Well, later was a different story, but I want to bring you out. These 2 transports was only that they took from this camp to the other camp, to the hospital. After these 2 transports, they must have get the order that the Jews will be killed anyhow. If somebody is sick, let them die there, or keep them till you need him, not to send him to any hospital no more. Because whoever got sick, they got sick, and whoever died, they died. They kept them, and they brought other people, you know, when they needed more people. Nobody went out from this camp anymore. Later, because I found out when I was home that a woman, my mother's a friend, her boy was also dead in the camp, my age boy, and he got sick later on that sickness that they didn't take it. And she found out that her boy wrote to her or whatever, that they didn't let nobody out anymore. Because later they took the whole camp when they finished their job to build the housing. I don't know how long, maybe another year. Whoever was there, they killed all of them out. So it means when I wouldn't get sick on typhus, and I would be there, I wouldn't be around now. So everything had to do with luck. The typhus sickness, the horse saved me this day. The typhus sickness saved me the typhus. Because when I came home, and I was laying in bed another 3 weeks till I came to myself, and I went, in another couple of weeks, they surrounded the town, and they went from house to house to take away the people. No more for working camps. They took everybody, old men. They killed in the streets people, and I was hidden on the attic with my father. You know, they pulled out the letter with my brother. Later came an order that they lead to a certain camp, certain young men to work, because we know these people what they take out, they couldn't take out the whole town. They took out so many housing for already without people. And later they surrounded again the town, and they took again till there was nobody left. So in between, by one action, I was actually home sitting on the attic and could see what is going on in the town. Then, after they were finished with this action, they left. Nobody knew where the people went. They sent the non-Jews to follow them to find out where they're taking those people. They must have come back and told them that they're killing them because nobody talked. A few weeks later came an order that they needed people in another place to work. This was for a working camp. Everybody wanted to go. I was lucky they took me, but they didn't take my older brother. Who know who came was gone. When they took us to that working camp, this was a small working camp where they built it, a hydroelectric, you know, by the river, Dunajec they call it. And it was pretty good. We didn't have guards, we just had a regular fence, we could walk out. Whoever had money could go to a nearby store to buy some extra food. In the first month they gave us a paycheck. We were shocked to see it. You know, we were working with non-Jews, with civilian people, and we were also considered workers, but we had our own kitchen. We couldn't get the same food as the other Polish people got. But we were working together, and at night we got the kitchen, we got our food, and if you had some money, you could buy some extra food or something. It was very nice. Then there was two groups of people, Jewish boys, from my town and from another town, next to the place. It was very close to their town. So they used to go home, a group of people they used to take home every Saturday afternoon from the company. They had those bulldozers, you know, what the tractors with you know, hooked up those flatbeds, and the tractor went very slow, you know, and they took them down Saturday afternoon, and they let them stay with their families till Sunday, and they brought them back Sunday. The driver was staying there in the town, you know, they gave him a place to stay. So we went over that we are also entitled to go home to see our families from my town. But there wasn't, our town was much further, you know, further to go than they had to go. Our town had to go through the big city where I was in the hospital. You know, first they had to go through this, then there was another 19 kilometers to our town. This was considered very far away in Europe, you know, even with those bulldozer tractors. This goes very slow. So the commander who was in charge, a German, in the camp, Ramstadt. So I was home yet for one day. Everybody went back Sunday to go back. Nobody wanted to escape. It's a matter of fact, other people wanted to go back on my place and pay me money. And I said, what am I going to do? Money to stay here to be killed? So everybody went back. And I went back. Then 3 weeks later, we went over again to the commander that we are entitled again to go home for the camp. Then he says to us, I'm very sorry to tell you, this town is Jewish free, you know, Judenfrei. That means there's no more Jews in the town. You have no place where to go back no more. And I will never hear from my parents anyone that says. But my brother, I knew, was in this camp, in another camp. Now, I was in this camp, I can't remember how long, maybe a year, maybe a year and a half. And the war was going on with the Soviet Union, you know, and Russia. They came an order that Jews cannot be in a such a no more in Flossenburg. Schindler, he wound up by Schindler. And the other two cousins who survived wound also up by Schindler. That's how they got saved. Because in Flossenburg, very few people survived, you know, because it was very bad food. And Flossenburg was the last camp already. So I was in Puskov, Chechov, Mielec. Bielichka was a short time, but we didn't, and then Flossenburg. And Flossenburg was a very bad camp. It was a real concentration camp. This was built in 1933. When Hitler took over, because I found there a lot of Germans. Real Germans. They told me they are there since 1933.
Political prisoners.
Yes, no, they were not. There was a lot of political, but the first ones were criminal prisoners. They had green triangles, also a number, early number. Mine was also an early number. I still remember my number, 16,766. was my number, put it down with a red triangle, you know, on the clothes here, sew down. I can't remember who sewed it on, but I had to sew it down. But they had towards the end, they never gave to new people the numbers from people who died or who got killed. They just continued with larger numbers. I remember towards the end, where they took us out already on the dead, on the Jews only. There was people who was already with 85,000 the number, 95,000 the number, but the camp didn't have more than about 5,000-6,000 people. That means all the rest, little by little, were gone. Mine was an early number. It's a matter of fact, even the SS and the couple of German Mainsters who were in charge on the building, when they saw you had such an early number, they respected you a little bit. Because they forget if you could still alive, but you came so early with such an early number, then we got to respect you a little bit. So I was there, this was the last camp. But the funny thing is how things happen, and everything has to do with luck. How many times it was luck involved when I wouldn't have, in other words, a sickness was luck, that I got sick. When I wouldn't have, lucky all of a sudden they needed a group of people. When I was home already after the police came, and they needed people to go to Lloyd. When they wouldn't need a group of people, I would have remained in town and I would have gone out with the rest of the people. So everything has to do with luck. If it's luck to meant that you should live, it's too so that somehow you survive. And even when I was in the train where they took us out from Flossenburg, we were 10 days, I told you, from Sunday till a week later, a whole week, and then it's Tuesday, I was liberated. We were twice striped from American planes. You know, they didn't know where the things, and they shut up the locomotives and this, and they, from one end train to the other end train. And I was sitting in that wagon, and I see what is going on, how people getting killed all around me. And I said to myself, I shall never forget, you better off to get killed than they should tear off a leg or an arm. Because then they get the bullets. So what I did, I shall never forget. I stood like this in the wagon. Here was an assessment that he wouldn't let us go out from the train. The train stopped and he opened the doors and they ran out, the SS. That's why they thought it's a military train. I just went like this. I folded together my legs and I fell down to my floor like this. I said, if it's gonna hit me, let it kill me completely. I shall never forget this. Because right in front of me, an assessment who was supposed to be a guard, while I went like this down, I could see his head split up. Oh my God. And then we jumped out, and I wasn't touched. And dead people all around. Everything else. I could see when the bullets went through into the wagons, like a hail. I could see it like a hail, and it hit. Here it hit people like, you know, it comes from machine guns, from the airplanes, from fighter planes. 3 or 4 fighter planes went through the whole train. Then they went back in the second time, and they cut through the train stopped, and we jumped out, and they stopped shooting. And there was a lot of people dead. This was Tuesday. They took us out Sunday, and this was Tuesday. And then we couldn't go no more. I told you the story. They brought another locomotive. Then somehow the planes came back, and they only shut up the locomotive. They must have known that this train is prisoners. They couldn't get another locomotive. So then we stood there for a couple of days in the woods. It was cold. This was April, you know, in middle April. No food. Then they gave an order, we cannot go by train anymore, we have to make groups and go by foot. This was, again, murder. Because they made groups, and then they took us out from those woods where we stood, all of a sudden, with the groups, with so many SS working with us. Yeah, they gave us a piece of bread. This has to be for 4 days, because we will not be able to get any more bread, because this was the bread what they had by the train, you know. As soon as we looked out, a heavy rain came down. Very heavy, cold, you know, cold rain, like not snow, but, and we had, whoever had only a jacket and pants was okay. Like I had only a jacket and pants, but it got through and through wet, and that's it. Some people had coats. They thought they're gonna have a coat, it's gonna be warm from them. These coats killed them.
Ugh.
The coat got soaked and wet with water. They couldn't carry that coat and walk, and as soon as they fell down, booms, booms, booms. Constantly, while we were walking about 10 kilometers, the whole road was from both sides dead people. From where they shot who couldn't walk. This guy comes over to me and he wants to hold my coat. And I said, are you crazy? He walked with me, he thought, yeah. And as soon as I picked up that coat, I saw that the coat was full. I said, you take back that coat, leave me alone. I don't need that coat. And he fell down with the coat booms and I really shot him. And then another boy came down, he said, please let me hold you, and he held me, he made it. Then we walked up half of the night, and yeah, there was another thing. All of a sudden, in the middle of the walking, where there were so many dead people already from shooting, they stopped. And we didn't know what was happening. We didn't know it was dark. It's still raining. And I stood, comes over to me, one, I don't know if it was from the SS, but with a German uniform. Don't walk, he said, anymore. You see here, this was woods. In the middle was a road. He wanted to save me. And I didn't trust him. He came over here, I was a little boy, from all the years. I don't know how I looked like. He got pity on me somehow. He comes over to me, he says, you see across the other side of the road, there's a lot of people, but there stood approximately 10, 15 or 20 people, and I saw one stood with crutches. He said, go over there, we're gonna take those people by truck. Because don't stay here, because here go over there, you're gonna be taken by truck. I said, no, and I figured, not 100%, that 1,000%, that these people are going to bring a machine on and going to shoot them out. So I kept on saying, I don't know, I'm strong, I can walk, and I wouldn't go over there to that area. And I was between the people who walked, and I could have been shot that time 10 times. Somehow I made it till we came into a village, soaking wet, and they brought us into a barn, a farmer's barn. They brought us some sugar beets with tea. We stood there Saturday night, the whole night, between the straw, and Sunday a whole day, and Monday a whole day. They didn't force us to go further, because maybe they didn't know, they couldn't take us no place no more. Tuesday morning they took us out. After I was liberated, I found some people that they were between those people who stood in the line. They literally took them by truck. When I would have gone there, I wouldn't have to walk the 10, 15 miles kilometers, and I would have been saved already, because the same area where they took us to the barn, they took them with the truck to the barn. They got liberated also, and I didn't trust them. I didn't believe them that they're going to take him by truck. I said to myself, who are you kidding? You're going to take me by truck? You're going to put in this thing and shoot out, because when I looked at those people, I saw they had like dead people. And that's how it happened. So things has to do a lot with luck. A lot has to do with luck. And wait a minute, after I was liberated, when I came back to the same town, Stump Street, because I didn't see a soul. And because they escaped, the SS, we were hungry. We found the food cooking here for the military, the German soldiers were cooking for themselves who stood in this town, but they had to run away before they could eat their lunch, before they could eat their dinner. So we helped ourselves to the dinner. This was the first thing in our minds, to take the food.
Sure.
We sat down, we didn't care what's happening, just to eat first. And then it was more people, but there was no Germans. They all ran away. I'm talking civilians. We found housings. We went in. We were still, but we didn't have what to eat. So we went around to the Germans. This was after the Germans already ran away and the Americans took over. This was, let's say the 23rd I was liberated, I'm going, the 24th, the 25th. The war was still going on, you know, wasn't yet finished. But Hitler was dead already by that time, but the Germans knew
So this
it.
was April?
April the 23rd I was liberated. We went around to the German farmers to give us food. They gave us. That's how I was 3 weeks in this town with a friend, but we had plenty to eat. They gave us eggs, they gave us bread, they gave us all kind of food. So you know, the farmers, they weren't rich farmers, but looked like they were obligated, they were afraid. I mean, they gave us. So we had food. After 3 weeks, after a week or two, the town was full with people from the Flossenburg concentration camp who survived. You see, Flossenburg, they liberated the next Monday. We went out Sunday. It looks like they stood in the camp for a while. They had to eat also. Looks like this town, Stamm Street, must not been far away from the Flossenburg camp, because all of a sudden the town was full with those liberated people from camps. There was a lot of Russians, you know, Russian, non-Jews, Russians, they were in our camp, they were officers, so they weren't in a regular, somehow what they did, that they threw them into the concentration camp. So they were liberated a lot of Russians, and a lot from Poland, who they brought when it was the revolution, the second revolution, not the Jewish revolution, the Polish revolution. From all the countries, and they started to rob the German civilians. It looks like the German civilians complained for the American authorities. They gave an order that all of the people who are not from Germany, the Americans, we didn't know it, they should round up all of these people and send them home to their countries. They rounded me up too. And they took us, the Americans took us on those trucks. They drove us for more than a full day. I don't know where it was. Very far away from this town. And they take us into a place where it used to be a big camp for German soldiers. Because the barracks were there empty. You could see those hanging those pictures from German soldiers, the way they're shooting. They took us there. They put down by the front gate an American soldier, a guard with a gun, and walks back and forth. This was a Saturday, and I arrived there Saturday, I think, in the afternoon, with a lot of boys. They rounded me up too, to send me back to Poland. And I knew I don't have nothing to go back to Poland. I have nobody there, and I didn't want to go back to Poland. But I didn't know what I want to do, but just to be free. I said to myself, what is going to... I just came out from a camp and I'm back in a... I couldn't believe this myself. What is going on? All those years in camps, back in a camp, because it was a camp. And in the front was working an American soldier. You know, with a big gate, because this was a military camp from the German army. And this was Sunday afternoon. And I said, sit like this. I said, what am I gonna do? And I had another boy there my age. I said, I remind myself a story from my father, from World War I. That he told us a story from World War I. This came into my mind. That they wanted to take him to the Austrian army. This was the Austrian-Hungarian Empire. Yeah. And he didn't want to go. First of all, First World War. So he ran away from his hometown to go to Czechoslovakia. You know, Czechoslovakia was that time under the Austrian. That my grandfather had somebody there, living there, but he couldn't cross the border. There was a bridge to cross from this part, Hungarian Austrian, to the other part there. It was like soldiers were walking. I'm talking in the good times yet, the Austrian times. So he told us the story that he ran away there close to the border. He went over, and the town was divided. Half of the town belonged to this part of the country, and half of the town belonged to the other country. And there was a river in between, and there was a bridge. And and by the bridge was always walking the soldiers, you know, who were guarding the border. But there were Jewish people in this time living in this town side of the bridge. There was Jewish people living in the other side. So there was Jewish people in this time of the bridge, from his country, that they had the shul, the synagogue was on the other side. So every Friday night they walked to the other side, and after the services they walked home, and in the morning they walked, but they didn't bother them to check, because they knew it's Friday evening and Saturday morning. The guards knew that they live here and they go to pray there. They could go from one, because they could cross, but they had to show the thing. So I remind me, my father told me the story that when he was there, he's gonna walk over the bridge with another man who could walk over legally. And and he will walk with him together like he goes to the services in the other side of the bridge. He should be out from his area, he shouldn't have to go to the army. So I'm gonna do the same thing with this boy. He told me how he did it. You told us a story from before World War I. He told us a story that they walked on the bridge, and they stopped, and they talked, and they talked again. One told us that they talked to each other till they walked through the bridge. Then he was on the other side. Later this one went back, and he remained there already. My father told me, I said, you know what, you're going to do the same thing. What can they do? It's not German soldiers, they're not going to kill us. It's not the SS, it's an American soldier who walks back and forth to guard the gate.
Right.
So we went out Sunday morning, I talked to him, and he talked to me. And I told him what we should do. This was after I was liberated. I was 21 years old already at the time. And I said, we're gonna walk towards the gate, we're gonna walk slowly out the gate. If the soldier is gonna stop us, then he's gonna stop us, he's gonna chase us back. If he's not gonna stop us, we're gonna keep on going and talking. That's what we did. And we went through slowly. The American soldier had the gun on his shoulder, you know, like a post, walks back and forth, back and forth. And we stopped right next to the soldier, and we talked like I tell him a story. And he didn't care what we did. We kept on going. When we went out, all the way out, then we saw a house. We went behind the house, that he couldn't see us no more. I said, no, let's run. He cannot see us no more. So we ran. Where are we gonna go? We didn't know it. We didn't know where we are. We went down a little further, me and this boy. But later I found out they didn't send back anybody. They got an order later to let everybody go free. But we didn't know this. I thought they were gonna send us back. We went further, and I came into a train station. And I saw a big train. You know, already the regular wagons, the locomotive was steaming. And there was a German that ran around from place to place by the train. And you know, he had those things in his hand to give the signals. And we went over to this train. And I said, I don't care where we're gonna go. We gotta get out of here. To him, you know, let's jump, let's go on the train. Wherever the train will go, let it go. You know, it's in Germany. We are still in Germany. We went over there, and he sees us. And we asked him, can we go on this train? He said, I am not gonna charge you. Because now the train is on a tryout basis. And this is the first time they just fixed the railroad tracks. And this is the first time that we are going to, but we don't have yet any passengers. But if you want to go up on the train, who cares, he says, go on the train. So we went on the train. This train wound up, it traveled up quite a long time. I can't remember how many hours. Because they tried out already the railroad tracks. After this, they would take already passengers. This had to be like 3 weeks after the war ended. When everything was still bombed out completely. The big cities were bombed, but this area wasn't bombed. It was small areas, you know. We went up on the train. We were the only 2 passengers on the train. It was a long train. This was no more those wagons for the wooden train. It was a regular passenger wagon. We went in, we sat down. And the train went. And the train went up in Frankfurt am Main.
That's a lot of stuff.
Oh, a long way. I don't know how far, but he went up in Frankfurt am Main. Once it stopped and went down. We know now we don't have to worry no more about this camp there business. Later we found out they didn't send back nobody. But meanwhile they took us a whole day on that truck to send us. I said, am I crazy? I'm gonna go back now again. So we wind up in Frankfurt and there we found already a lot of the Jewish people. They already had a Jewish organization, a lot of American soldiers, but the Frankfurt am Main was bombed completely. Especially the Jewish section was completely bombed out. So, but they gave us housing from German Nazis. So we had, and later they gave us jobs to work for the German military. That's how I wound up. I remained in Frankfurt am Main. So I came here to the United States. But everything had to do with luck. There were so many instances that were not this, you wouldn't be around. But not this, you wouldn't be here.
Will you come with us now to go buy some lottery tickets?
I don't know what.
Let's all go. Come on. You pick the numbers.
It's unbelievable.
How many years
And
were
I
you in
wouldn't get back
Frankfurt?
on typhus, sick and typhus.
How many years were you in Frankfurt am Main before you came to
Oh,
the United
from
States?
1945
Did you film
till
it? Very
1949.
nice.
4 years in
4 and a
Frankfurt.
half
Some really
years.
cool stories.
Sister, the cognac. The
They're all
cognac
original
black
too.
market.
Like every Thanksgiving, it's a new story.
It's something new,
I
yeah.
worked for 2 years.
I don't even remember the day and the weather.
It was a Wednesday. Like, I
Tuesday
don't know what I
and it
did
was
last
cold.
week.
Tuesday in the afternoon, it was very cold.